Hi. I will talk about what's a great way to ask for quality feedback from your friends, or for my case, like what inspired me to come up with this subject is that I'll soon have a personal trainer in fitness, and so I became conscious about this good attitude approach in learning, and I feel like people may have we all are probably smart enough to ask for feedback. But I feel like being of a service, and also in return, I also kind of want to ask like people to comment to something like what's a great way to ask for feedback, etc. And then you guys can learn from each other. And but my take on like asking for good quality feedback is quite simple. You just have to make sure you ask qualitatively and quantitatively, but also like challenge them to think a bit more. Like I will make sure like when I ask a teacher like, hey, I would like to ask how am I doing, but when I do so, I will really ask more like what may be the top three aspects that I can improve on in this or this, like, and then they will come up with answers. And then if you come up with if they come up with three aspects, that's great. What this ask for from the person who is asked is like when you ask, hey, please give me three aspects of what I can improve on, then they will come up with three, or maybe just two for now. But the thing is, they will actually really think carefully about this, and they will try to give you a multi-dimensional answers if they really want you to improve, given that they're very invested in your efforts and time. And so like they will come up with varieties of answers, right? Yeah, like I remember now I'm thinking, oh, it's a variety of answers, not varieties of answer. I used to have like a grammar teacher, and I always ask questions like, hey, could you please tell me what are my top two kinds of common mistakes I do in grammar, or top three common types of mistakes, and they can explain. From memory, they will analyze like your what did you do in terms of like writing or reading or speaking, right? And then my tutor would come up with like, so maybe you should work on your past tenses, etc. Like they'll come up with something. So when I say like qualitative and quantitative, I mean like they will come up with more than one example, but then they will try to make these examples based off of their experiences. If you ask your own teacher, tutor, or coach, or back then it was more of a grammar teacher, but I would just say it's good to ask for more than three aspects, or more than two, at least more than two. Some people ask for like top two aspects, but I think if you really want great quality feedback, you want to not be afraid to ask for people to sort of move for you a lot, because if you paid for knowledge, etc., and they understand your efforts and your investment, and they understand like you really put the efforts in, you really had this mentality of learning well, then they will. It's like if a student give more care, the teacher will also give more care, and so it's like a response. It's just like a return of the same amount of energy. And then like if you ask only for two, it feels like, or one is worse, right? But two is like okay, but it's like if you ask for three, that's even better. It's like they will view you like, if they're teachers, right? They will view, hey, this student, he or she is really trying to like dig into this. So I really should up my game as a teacher. Not that teachers are not upping their game by default, but you want to show enthusiasm, show excitement, and then if you ask more energy from them, enthusiastically, in the interest of self-development, they will put even more effort, right? Like you ask, hey, give me five aspects of how to improve. Like then they will quickly try to think, and usually, and I learned this from making like this 30 days random topic video challenge. It's like if I want to come up with 30 different topics, I kind of at least on the subconscious level, I'm trying to make the topics as a variety, like diversified, right, from each other as much as possible. Even though I'm probably going on certain pattern already, you may have noticed. And so you ask for the teachers, right? Going back to what I was talking about, like asking for feedback. If you ask for multiple aspects, they will try to diversify their answers. And they will try to, it actually primes them, cue them into becoming even more observant, right? As I said, you give more energy, they will give more energy. And so when you ask questions that seems more demanding, they will be like, okay, answer your questions, your current questions, as properly as possible, and then they will come up with like that they will just really focus on, hey, the next time I'll be more observant, so I can really glean what you really need to improve on. And then that way it's like a cycle, right? Like the more it's kind of like it's kind of like if you hire like two people to observe you, or let's say you hire two scientists to observe a crocodile, and you have a walkie-talkie, and those two have it, and one is on channel 1 and channel 2. If you ask one question on channel 1 every day and ask no questions on channel 2, the one holding the walkie-talkie that's attached to channel 1 will be more likely to stay more alert. And so this is going to be at your advantage to improve yourself when it comes to like, hey, asking for quality feedback. And frequency is also important too. Of course, you don't want to ask it like every day, right? Like, but if you can, if it's a very like super important and you care enough about it, you will naturally do it. And teachers, they'll be fine with it, right? And so like frequency is also important. Ask enough frequency, right? Like, don't have like 5 classes per week and the whole week you didn't ask a single question on how to improve yourself, or just in general asking for a general feedback, right? So like that's how things should flow in terms of fishing for great quality feedbacks. And I think I touched on like frequency and be demanding. Don't be afraid to be demanding, right? Like I heard like from successful salespeople, they tend to it's like they break through a Fargo of like trying to like break this psychological barrier of not afraid to asking for more, and that actually have more profits. Same thing for knowledge. The more you ask for knowledge, the better, right? Like if the teacher shows up tired and you're playing tennis and he or she is your tennis coach, yes, I'm trying not to be inhuman by saying, hey, don't like disregard how tired they are. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's more like, well, it's their job to like answer questions. Of course, treat them with respect and politeness, but don't be meek in asking for more questions, or asking like even psychological question in tennis. Why not? Like if you want to, like say, hey, which kind of serve in balls do you think I'm most nervous about? And then you could frame your questions differently. How specific you ask your questions, the specificity of your questions will be like so important. Like you can like you like shooting a basketball, you cannot just say, hey, am I strong enough to like, do you think how should I improve on my strength, right? That's one way of asking. And then how can I improve on my aim? Different kinds of questions yield different kinds of answers. And like if you were to ask your teacher, of course you don't want to bombard them with all kinds of questions and make the flow of questions so relentless, right? So that's why specificity is important. If it's relentless, or at least it feels relentless, people can't really blame you for being relentless if each question has a point to them, and especially if each question is really, really diverse, like really, really different from other questions, right? I feel like I'm talking in circle, but I feel like I'm onto something. It's like there's no there's no limit to how one can articulate in explaining something. And if you think of any ideas how to improve my own articulations, like, feel free to comment in. I'll be so happy to read them. And when I don't want to prime the word what articulation really mean. I don't want to describe it so that I can have a wider range of interpretation of what articulation is, and then I could get feedback. I just did a great example of asking a specific question, right? Like, I ask for articulation, it's a specific word, but the way I ask it is also thought-provoking, right? I didn't say, hey, please focus on my pronunciation skills, those kind of things. It's more like that's the other thing. You can ask for specific questions, but you can also put in words that has a very, not necessarily generic meaning, but open to interpretation, right? Like, if I ask, hey, how can I improve my stamina in playing tennis? The teacher could say, hey, maybe you could try run faster, improve your cardio, or they could just say, you know what, maybe go lift, add a 15% plus on the regular weights you lift, right? There's different approaches to answer the question. As long as, these words are seemingly basic, but it open for many kinds of ways of answering them, right? Like, you say, a great example that can pinpoint what I'm saying is like, hey, what do you think, and I'm actually curious about this, like, what makes a great comedian an awesome comedian? Like, it's open and it's subjective. But if you're asking for technical stuff like tennis, you could ask for skill-based questions like, hey, how can I serve better? Or what can I do to be less afraid of serving better, if it's psychological? Or hey, well, what should I think about when I serve the ball in terms of focusing on my opponent? And so it's like same question but framed differently. So just a quick recap. I believe what I was talking about is like, don't be afraid of demanding, and don't be afraid of asking as specific questions as possible, but also framing them as much as you can. So you're really going for multi-dimensional answers, etc. And then so you can really engage your teacher. And then through these questions, and also make sure you ask frequent questions, as long as these questions are different from one another. So ultimately, in overall, you're basically fishing for intelligence, fishing for like whole kinds of variety of answers, and all can serve you to become better. I hope I did great, and I'll probably self-judge myself after this video is posted, but it's okay. I enjoy doing these, and I'll try to make a better version tomorrow too. And I hope what I explained in the video could shed some more new insights, or at least a new way of thinking. And if not, it's all cool. It's all cool. I'll as long as the people got the pleasure of listening to my video and possibly learning something new, I'm very happy. And thank you very much for listening to my video. Thank you. Bye bye.